2026, do you want to make this the best season yet for you? Well, guess what? It doesn't start in January, it starts in off-season. It is a critical phase. And in the world of triathlon, there's a ton of information out there. It can be complicated, it can be time-consuming to understand. But we're going to help you break through. We are offering complimentary off-season needs assessment calls. You can meet with one of our coaches where we can understand your background, your goals, what your ideal pathway is to success. Now, it might result in us finding that you're a great fit for Purple Patch. But either way, I tell you what, you're going to leave with some real practical insights to make sure that you can go ahead and nail your off-season, which I have said many times and we dig into on today's show, is the baseline, most critical phase for athletes to have performance breakthroughs. It's very, very simple to get involved. All you need to do is reach out to us, info@purplepatchfitness.com. Let them know that you'd like a needs assessment with one of our coaches and we will set you up. We are going to unlock your effectiveness and your off-season magic. Enjoy the show. I'm Matt Dixon and welcome to the Purple Patch Podcast. The mission of Purple Patch is to empower and educate every human being to reach their athletic potential. Through the lens of athletic potential, you reach your human potential. The purpose of this podcast is to help time-starved people everywhere integrate sport into life. And welcome to the Purple Patch Podcast. As ever, your host, Matt Dixon. And today, we welcome a special guest, a good friend of mine. She is embedded in the Purple Patch Performance Center here in San Francisco. She has her grubby fingers over many Purple Patch athletes. She is one of the leaders in physical therapy and a great mind in not just the prevention of injury, not just fixing injuries, but helping people come to a whole nother level of performance. Her name is Renee Songer. She is a key part of our network of partners at the Purple Patch Center and also across the Purple Patch ecosystem of athletes. She is a great resource, and we are going to dig into everything from what does it mean to be a great physical therapist. It's not just getting you back to walking down the street as a normal human being. Today's discussion is insightful. If you want to understand what it means to partner with a great physical therapist, how to make yourself bulletproof, how to shift your perspective, not just from injury prevention, but performance progression, Renee is going to share all. It's a wonderful discussion. She is a wealth of knowledge. It's a lot of fun. You're going to enjoy it. Without further ado, I give you Renee Songer. All right, it is the meat and potatoes. As promised, as advertised, we are with a very special guest, someone I've been looking to get on the show for goodness me the last year or so. Finally, schedules align. Renee,
Wonderful.
Thank you very much for joining.
Super happy to be here with you. Thank you.
We see each other multiple times a week. Mm-hmm. I try not to send you many people because we're Purple Patch. We don't like to get people injured, but you have put people back together again for us.
It has been my pleasure.
Thank you very much. Yes. We're very lucky to get to work with you, and as I mentioned in the pre-main of the show, Renee is really sort of one important cog as a part of the Performance Center here in San Francisco. One of the Bay Area's most respected physical therapists. You work all over the Bay Area.
I do.
But home base here at the Performance Center in San Francisco. And so very familiar to all of the athletes here that train with us in San Francisco and have helped many athletes beyond as well. Mm-hmm. So we are going to dig in today and we're going to talk a little bit about you, a little bit about physical therapy, and then we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of the education. But as I do with every guest, mm-hmm. I'd love to just know a little bit about your background, where you grew up and family history and stuff along those lines.
I am actually a California native.
You are one of the rare ones.
Very rare fish these days. I grew up in Santa Barbara and one of three girls, and have always kind of been an on-the-go outdoors kid. Went to college at UCLA
Oh, okay.
And then I defected out of California for a whole 3 years, went to physical therapy school in Georgia at Emory.
Yep. Oh,
And then moved back. I was in LA for my first job and moved up to Northern California in 2007 and have been up here since.
and when you growing up, I'm always fascinated with this. I was just chatting to a new athlete that I'm coaching. I said, "What's your sports background?" I always love to hear that, and his answer was, "I was a professional water skier." It's just like something completely out of the blue, and then we've never had one of those. So,
No,
so
I haven't either, I have to say.
I'm guessing you weren't a professional water skier, but what was your sports growing up?
I am very mediocre at a very large number of things. I am not
Okay.
a professional anything. My first competitive activity was swim team when I was probably 8 or 9,
Okay.
and I really kind of found that I liked the competitive nature. I did not like being the solo attention athlete. You know, everybody's watching you perform on your
Yeah.
own. That was not my thing. So, girls AYSO soccer had just started. So this is like late 70s, early 80s. So I started playing soccer when I was in 4th grade,
Mm-hmm.
and that took me through high school. I spent a lot of time on the bench. Was not very good. Got to college and was not good enough to play in college. But I ended up rowing.
Oh, interesting.
It
Yeah.
was very interesting for a short person to choose a tall
Yeah.
person's sport. Ended up having a back injury. Ended up as a coxswain for the men's team for the last 2 years of college.
Fascinating.
Yeah, very different skill set, telling a lot of,
Yeah.
young 20s, very oversized boys what to do all day. So a skill set that
Yeah.
was developed then. And then since then, it has just been, kind of Jane of all trades, master of nothing. I In the summer, I'm on my bike, I'm in the pool. Before my knee injury, I used to be able to do a bunch of running. I loved my 3 or 4 half marathons a year.
Mm-hmm.
Winter, I will be cross country skiing and snowshoeing
Oh,
and downhill
fantastic.
skiing. And so, I mean, again, I am moderately competent at whatever I enjoy. Ball sports are not my thing.
Yep.
I have terrible eye-hand coordination.
All that,
Um,
all that good stuff.
yeah, yeah.
And when you growing up as an athlete, this is clearly a leading question here. But growing up as an athlete, were you consistently injured? And the reason I'm asking this question was that that's sometimes the obvious catalyst of someone getting really interested in a trade is that they
Yeah.
had their own challenges, etc. Like as a coach, I wanted to make sure that my athletes didn't make the same mistakes that I did. So I became known as the recovery coach, etc.
Oh, interesting.
So I guess the question is, how did you get really interesting in physical therapy and take that on? And was that because of injuries growing up?
I definitely had a collection of injuries, but also when I was little, I loved my pediatrician. And from the time I was really young, I wanted to be a doctor.
Mm.
And then, I had a really nasty ankle sprain in high school soccer. I had some knee pain. You'd go to the orthopedist, and it was very clear that you were either a surgical candidate or a PT candidate. And so, um, and then when I got into college, I herniated a disc trying to compete with girls who are a foot taller than me. And again, same thing. Like you go to the doctor and it's the diagnosis, and then out the door you go to this person
Mm-hmm.
who is the problem solver, the creative thinker, the relationship builder. And I was like, oh, I do not want to be a doctor.
Yeah.
This is the domain that I want to go in. So I think healthcare was always on my path. It was just I switched domains in college when I figured out that this was more the lane I liked.
It's a good leeway. I mean, you've worked with a tremendous range of athletes. I mean, right here in the centre, you've got a ski racer's bib up on the wall, professional ski racing, but obviously a ton of endurance athletes. Was that? Do you see working with endurance athletes? Is that something that's challenging beyond, let's call it general population, because they're at the pointy end of sport, and it's almost the school of learning there, the opportunity to have amazing case studies? Like, what really expanded where you were excited to work with athletes of all kinds?
My first job, we had a ton of professional athletes,
Mm.
and they were mostly ball sport athletes. And so you have your baseball players, your basketball players, your football players, and That was fun, but it's really specific. It's very skills oriented. And then when I moved to the Bay Area, I mean, you can't, everybody here is hyper competitive about everything. Everybody here has to, accomplish the biggest thing. And
Yeah,
so the transition into endurance athletes really kind of came out of geography, I
yeah.
think. Um,
Everybody is an endurance athlete.
Everybody here is an
Yeah,
endurance athlete.
yeah,
Nobody just sits on their couch here.
yeah,
And so it was, I'd say, kind of circumstance rather than intention. But um, yeah, they are everywhere, and it's just a different kind of project, I think. You're looking to make a person be able to do a thing that they love
yeah.
for a very long period of time.
And that. I mean, that strikes. I want to sort of go into the philosophy of being a physical therapist, and for you, there's a preconceived notion of I go to a physical therapist when something's broken, I fix it, and then I never see them again.
Yeah.
I'd love you to, and it's almost setting the stage for this conversation. Define the role through your eyes. What's your role as a physical therapist for someone that's coming into you? What do you define success as?
I find success as them being able to do the thing that they want to do.
Hmm.
Sometimes that is pain free, sometimes that isn't pain free, sometimes that's at 110%, sometimes it's at 93%. I have great personal satisfaction when the person comes in and says, "Here's my project, here's my goal," and they can actually get there. Um, I think the role of PT, you're right, historically has been. Can I go on my American healthcare system soapbox?
Yeah.
The insurance system has really mitigated access to PT for so
Yeah.
long. And so you used to have to go into your doctor to get a prescription. Your doctor had to agree that you needed PT. You had to find a clinic that took your insurance. Insurance would tell you get 3 visits. And so, yeah, everybody's expectations here is that PT is gatekept and really limited and only for a problem. There's
Yeah.
no prevention. And so now I think it's important for people to know that they can, across the country, you can access physical therapy through a direct access system. Every state has their own version of that. In the state of California, you can come to a PT without going to your doctor, without getting insurance approval. It doesn't mean that your insurance will necessarily cover it or cover the whole thing,
Hmm.
but you can see a PT if you have a problem now. So you
Okay.
get 6 weeks or 12 visits, whichever happens first. And after that, you have to work with your PT to get a physician referral and et cetera. But you don't have to wait until you're broken.
Okay. That's there's. I want to ask one other thing about it, because when historically, and I moved to America too many moons ago now, 1992. But when I first came, and at that time I was, a swimmer, and then I went on to race triathlons professionally, and when I had any interactions with PT, the common thing was just bringing it back to basically function rather than performance. My experience of working with very good PTs now, yourself included, is that's a very different mindset of, no, how do we actually not just get you back to baseline, but actually get you back to higher performance? Is that something that sort of drives your thinking?
For sure. For sure. I think that, in the general population, a lot of people are just satisfied with back to baseline, and that's important. But in the endurance athlete population, I think a lot of people don't necessarily recognize that they have limitations or they have restrictions in their participation in their performance. And so if you have somebody who's been an athlete from the time they were a little kid, usually there is some sort of historical injury. Usually there is some sort of, grouchy little bit that'll show up. It gets managed. They stop doing their exercises because the pain goes away. It shows back up 2 years later, and you just end up on this sine curve. And personally, I think PT is evolving
Yeah.
to say there's more that we can do for people. The idea that, I'm working with a woman right now who was similar to you, a super high level swimmer, Olympic trials, freestyle endurance. And, she's describing from the time she was in high school, she has the shoulder pain that they just gave her cortisone injection after cortisone injection over the decades.
Yeah.
And now she's 35. She wants to be able to do push-ups. She wants to be able to do pull-ups. And so it's like peeling back the layers of the onion to figure out the root cause. How do we teach you how to move better? How do we undo this 25-year history of your movement patterns and give you the strength and or the mobility and or the just like body awareness to be able to do the thing that you want to do?
Yeah, that's great. I can't help but go on a tangent here because I was thinking about you operating in the Purple Patch Centre here and the cycle of service being a part of a team. And so I'm just going to use a little case study here that happened to pop up. And I didn't pre-warn you about this, but working with my athlete, Jenna, who has low ankle Achilles sort of issue. And you had a little look on the bike, and then who is going to be, I believe, next week's podcast guest, Chris Soden from Strategic Fits. Exactly. And I happened to walk by, not that I'm always watching, I'm always listening, but I heard you guys having a conversation, and Chris, for you guys that know, you can listen to him on the podcast, I think next week, is fantastic, world-renowned bike fitter. And I heard you having a discussion around Jenna and her biomechanics on the bike, fit position, etc., and going in. Is that must be a really empowering situation, not just here, but whenever you get to work with other experts, where you triangulate and try and come up with a solution for the athlete to actually say, okay, this is great, because you can't fix things in a vacuum.
Correct.
Basically, it's reliant on the coach being smart and collaborative, the athlete having really good habits and doing their homework, which is a big thing. That's the art to follow through, and then having the perspective of real experts in potential domains like Chris having that. So I'd love your quick perspective, and then we're going to get into sort of some of the deeper education, but I'd love your perspective on that cycle of service in a way.
I absolutely love having collaborative coaches, collaborative experts. I mean, I know what I know. I also know what I don't know, and I don't know a lot.
Yeah.
And so to be able to sit down with Chris and say, like, here's the video. I saw her working out here in the studio yesterday. I went in and I'm like, you're still doing the same thing. Try this, try this. We're going to talk to Chris tomorrow, because I know what I see. I know what I want to change for you, but I don't know how we put that into play on your bike. Does your fit need to change? Or is this my job, or is this Chris's job?
Yeah.
How do we interact?
And then my job to reinforce when I'm seeing her actually exercise.
and my job to say, like, hey, Matt, she's got to dial it back on this little bit that's creating this issue. How can we change her program so that it doesn't compromise her end game, but we can let this thing heal, we can change this movement pattern, and then get her back into the structure that you want her training in.
Yeah.
And it is really one of the things that I love about being here, that I can have a conversation with Crystal about what's happening in strength class.
Yeah.
And I'm working with a woman who's got tons of knee pain. And what is she doing in class? What does she look like? Can we change this? When you give her this exercise, do this instead. And it makes it so much more effective, rather than leaving it all on the athlete to figure it out for themselves. That's impossible.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, fasten your seatbelt, because we're going to dig into some stuff if you're ready here. And I want to first shine the focus on people that have a lot of competing demands. At Purple Patch, and most people listening to this show are incredibly busy.
Yes.
They're also performance driven.
Yes.
They're either performance driven in typically leadership and professional wise and et cetera, but are certainly exercising, et cetera. Or, of course, the majority of the listeners, which are performance driven in sports. And so they are, not looking to just avoid injury. They are looking to drive performance. When you have an athlete, without going into the the Achilles is a common issue, the calf is an issue, all that stuff, what do you see some of the common issues or mistakes maybe that when you start working with a time-starved athlete, people that are very, very busy, what are some of the missteps that you see on the preventative side or the daily habits side that many athletes unfortunately fall into the trap of?
I think people are so focused on the training,
Yeah.
that they think, I have time for a 30-minute run today, and if I have 5 minutes of prep work, I'm devaluing my time. And I think that that's a really hard thing to ingrain in people, that I mean, this is actually an interesting question back at you as the coach, that to me, you're going to have a better outcome of a 25-minute run if you have 5 minutes of prepping your body to do the thing that it has a hard time doing,
Yeah.
then you're going to be just ignoring that and running for that extra 5 minutes.
I mean, would you like my response there? Yeah. So I think there's a layer back on that as well, where unfortunately, and this emerges out of just the zeitgeist of maybe the mindset of the endurance athlete, also the mindset of the coach, and how coaching occurs. And a lot of coaching is remote, and people get used to seeing workouts on a spreadsheet or a platform, etc. And they define success of, here's my magic plan that either I've downloaded off of the internet or I've got my coach that's written it for it. And if I can check the box on every one of these, and then I am going to be ready.
Yeah.
And so that's the definition of success. And of course, the truth is that that's never the case.
Yeah.
You know, and in fact, when I work with someone individually, you might lay it out, and we always call it a living document. And you have to be willing, you actually build the trust with the athlete to say, you might not do everything here. I might actually push you on and have you do more. I might pull you back. But you always have courage. And when you're working with a world-class athlete, they tend to be better at this. They actually train it where they actually say, hang on, I realize that, you know, I'm looking to build effective training, but people that are ambitious, that are time-starved, that don't have much cognitive capacity or time to really absorb it, just think it's another box check to get done. And so already, so that's one part. I think a second part is athletes are already very busy. So they feel like they've already got an optimization challenge with their training hours. So that there's a perception of, I could train 20 hours and that would be great. I've only got 12. I need to make every hour count.
Exactly.
And so then every one of these hours is pass fail. And if I miss one session, or if I do, in your example, 25 rather than the 30 minutes, I'm behind.
Yes.
And so it's that always catching up. It's my metaphor is always going into a gymnasium and hanging onto the rope and saying, if I can hang onto the rope for the next 16 weeks, I'm going to be great. You're not, you're screwed.
Yeah.
So I think that's one component point. So sorry to go and dominate, but
No.
yeah, come back to you. What are other stuff that you see?
I think, you know, the prep component of it is super important, but I also think that the undoing of what you just did to your body. You've been in the pool for an hour. You've been on the bike for 4 hours. I mean, the bike is just, it is, I think there's less prep work on a bike and there's more undoing that's required, getting out of that super tight fixed position. Or I think the racing from being the desk body into the athletic body.
Yeah.
You know, again, people just don't view the time as important to undo sitting at your desk all day.
Yeah.
You gotta get out of that physiological system situation and into the athlete movement physiological situation. And that's tough.
So we'll get into some tools and tricks of that. That's a nice way to think about it. You are moving from a static disposition body into a dynamic athletic body. So there needs to be some sort of transition. And then, and I'm almost mansplaining here, but I'm just repackaging it for myself. And then when you have finished the activity, unwinding what you've done. The bike is actually really interesting because it's relatively non-weight bearing, but it is a very static position. So if someone goes out on the weekend and does a 4-hour bike ride, especially when you're in a flatter terrain where there's less, motor recruitment differences, you're sitting in one position, that's an incredibly corrosive thing on your lower back, on your muscles. So there's got to be some unwinding of that. Correct. In many ways. That's really what you're talking about, yeah?
Yeah, it is. A swim, I think there's less unwinding that's required. A run, there's some, but on a bike, man, you might as well just be in a fetal position in bed.
Yeah.
And then trying to get up and move and live your life, pick up your kid, reach for a glass off the top shelf. It's like the opposite direction of what you just spent your whole Saturday doing. And, I think the other thing, especially when working with purple patch athletes, when, the endurance events aren't the 30, 45-minute events, they're the 13-hour
Yeah.
events. I mean, it's just people spend so much time on their bike. And if you expect your body to feel super coming out of that and being able to transition into a run or into life, I think I don't want to call it impossible, but it's really hard.
Is it possible? Even as a coach, as I hear this, I I buy into the transition and the unwinding. That's a really nice cue to actually present value to it. At the same time, it's really challenging for athletes to actually habitualize that.
Correct.
If you want to think about that, and you're not talking about a lot of time, because we are always managing time. There are massive competing demands, etc.
Mhm.
So depending on athlete, etc. But the prep work, from the transition, as we're now calling it, or the unwinding work, how much time investment is there? And I use that word investment deliberately, but how much investment are we talking about here?
I think it really depends on the person.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you have someone who has been an athlete from the time that they were a little kid and they have, ingrained athletic body skills, probably less prep work,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because their body knows how to do the thing that they're going to do.
Yeah.
I think those people need more of the unwinding, and they need a little bit more of the intermittent maintenance on other activities that isn't their activity, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think that the people who are coming into endurance sports later in life, who weren't necessarily super athletic kids, their bodies don't have that ingrained athletic skill set from the time that they were little. Those people probably need more prep work because their body needs to be tuned up for whatever it is that they're going to do. If you're going to go for a run and you're not historically a runner, you got to tune up the things that need to be ready to go to enable your body to be an efficient, effective runner.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense.
And so I think the sport changes things, and just kind of how you're coming into the sport.
That's a really good perspective. There's also surely a little bit of I'm going to call it a luck, a genetic component to it.
Yeah.
And I'm incredibly lucky insofar as I, quote, never get overuse injuries. Really, it's just like one of these. I'm naturally mobile, and I never work. I ashamedly admit I should never work on mobility because I'm mobile, and it's never gone away. And I've done years of this competitive work. Transitions. I can make transitions really quickly because I've been an athlete all of my life, and I have this. So stretching has been, even when I was an elite athlete, I was like, I hate stretching because I didn't see the value, because it didn't actually draw some benefit, so I didn't do it. And but other athletes, I always get the should you stretch or not, and the answer is, of course, yes, likely, but it does depend because there are these outliers sometimes.
The answer in physical therapy that you hear all the time is it depends, and it's just the most annoying answer, but it really does. It really depends. The swimmer I was talking about earlier, she is hypermobile, like a medical diagnosis of hypermobility. She does not need to stretch.
But does that come with great weakness?
It comes with vulnerability.
Vulnerability,
I think, is more how I think of it, because she can move her body in ways that I will never. I could stretch to the day I died. I would never be able to move my body the way that she can. So what she needs is an awareness of, you're not going to catch here, you're going to catch here.
Yeah.
And then you need the strength to control all of that movement access that you have in your joint. So she's like, I just need a stretching program. I'm like, that is the last thing that you need.
Yeah.
You need a stability program.
Yeah.
And so that's more the it depends.
It comes back to your problem solving part of it, where you're creating you're bringing out the right tool for the right athlete. You actually need to be seen. And I think for people that do stray on the either natural or earned over many years, really, really poor mobility, it is something that can be dramatically improved.
Yes.
And I'm going to ask you a question, but I just a small anecdote. A legend of the Purple Patch Camps, a guy based out of Colorado, lovely guy called Paul Finger. And I remember we've just launched our 14th camp in a row. So 14 years, Paul has been to every single camp. And when he first started in swimming, his streamline was, for you guys that are watching on YouTube, was like this. It looked like a peak of a house. And he can now get into the classic, and he's 65 years of age now. So starting at 50 odd, he's like, I am going to do this.
Love it.
And that's getting into a true streamline. That's a really tough thing for people. But he just worked on it. He just did a minute every day. Basically, that became a part of his habit. But of course, what that's done is that's had an impact for him on how he carries his shoulders in running. He's much more. It's not just about being able to do a streamline. It just became the thing. So the point is that one can really improve the limiters, whether it's stability in the swimmer's case, whether it was mobility in Paul's case. This is stuff that if you do invest in, you can actually dramatically improve, and it will have an impact, not just on injury prevention, but ultimately performance.
I agree. I think the value, I'm going to be a little, self-promoting, but the value in PT is determining what the mobility restriction really is generated by.
Yeah.
And I had a guy who is in his early 50s who randomly bought a bike and is in, he sends me a picture and he's in a pretty aggressive, massive hip flexion required position and comes in because he's having a whole bunch of hip pain. And we do our exam and he structurally, skeletally, his hip is not going to allow him to get into that position. And so he's been at home for 6 months, stretching, pushing, being in a deep squat, doing his 90-90s. And he's like, I feel worse every time. And I'm like, yeah, you are grinding away at a structure that is not going to get there for you. And so we've been able to back off that. His hip pain is resolved. We got him a good bike fit. We have kind of just changed the focus a little bit for him. And, this year he's going to do his first half and he feels really good and really strong and pain-free and is really pumped about the whole thing. But, I think having someone assess, is it a mobility deficit or a mobility excess? It is strength excess because that happens too, or a strength deficit. And so it really becomes a tailored project.
So the real key is finding the right practitioner that's got a problem-solving mindset, not just bringing it. And number two, really making sure that whatever effort and energy you're going to put in, you're putting it in the right channel. And that's the way. Otherwise, you can be butting, and that's a massive part of the frustration is you can be working on XYZ, whether it's mobility, whether it's stability, and it's actually that's not the challenge. So you have someone that really, and I would say, pick your, because we're obviously talking to people globally. Pick your physical therapist wisely, someone that really understands the athlete, rather than just trying to get you back to basic function. It's like that. Not all coaches are made the same, not all physical therapists, but someone that really wants to understand the root cause, rather than, and I shouldn't be so disregarding expertise, but rather than just putting a bag of ice on it. It's like, no, we want to actually get to the root cause to understand what channel you should place your emphasis in, which I think is your superpower, to be honest. How do you, I want to talk about mindset, because we've talked about investment a little bit. How important is it for athletes? Here's your 5-minute pitch in a way, of why is it so valuable, so important for athletes to think about that word investment 5 minutes up front to save a bunch of time in the long term? So setting the mindset where, how do you get every listener here to buy in and say, this is worth it? You got 2 minutes. This is your preach. I'll give you the sermon.
That would be, if I actually could get every person to buy in, I think I would be very quickly out of a job, which I think is fantastic. When I'm trying to get people to say, I'm going to commit to the thing that I need to do, it really becomes about attaching it to something else. I mean, like you probably are a better expert in this than I am. It's the habit creation mindset. If I need to do heel raises because I need to build calf strength because I want to have a better push off in my run, when am I going to find time to do that? I'm going to do it while I'm brushing my teeth.
Yep.
I'm going to stand in the bathroom and I'm going to do my 35 heel raises. In the morning, I'm going to do another 35 at night when I brush my teeth before I go to bed. If that's all I can do, because I am that time-starved person, good enough. Right? We working with that person to be able to say, here is the thing.
Yeah.
Before you get on your bike, you are going to do this one thing.
Yep.
Before you go out on your cross-country ski in the winter, this is the one thing. You might be a prep person, you might be an undoing person, but here is the one thing, and you're going to attach it to that thing. If you're a multi-sport athlete, before you get in the pool, here's your project. Before you get on the bike, here's your project. Before you run, here's your project.
Yeah.
After the pool, I think another thing that people kind of overburden themselves with is, if I don't stretch after my bike, it doesn't count.
Yeah.
And sure, take that 2 minutes, right? That's super valuable because then you're going to get it done. But 2 or 3 nights a week when you're, I don't know, sitting around on the floor in the evening watching television, don't do it on your couch, do it on your foam roll. If you're playing with your kids on the floor, do your 90/90s while you're playing Legos.
Yeah.
Just like create a logical system for yourself that creates a cue to remind you to do the thing.
I would add to that as a coaching thing. A lot of folks listening to the show have heard us talk so much about the Sunday Special, which is our organizational tool, and we get our athletes and very busy executives to organize whatever our life non-negotiables. What are we doing for work? Now we integrate their training and their habits, things like sleep, etc. And that's shifting the perspective and relationship with their training to not an afterthought or a luxury, but actually a non-negotiable to integrate into life so that it amplifies everything else. Not only gets them ready for their events, but we also encourage, particularly our really busy executives, of you are integrating onto your calendar when you are doing lunch, when you're going to go and take a 15-minute walk after lunch. So this should be on the calendar. And there's a shift in mindset of prioritization, and it's a 10-minute calendar thing.
Yeah.
But then it's something that you can go back to that mindset and actually say, yeah, this is something that is a check the box thing, and where it is a non-negotiable. So it's shifting, because if you just think I'm just going to fill it into the cracks, those cracks fill and it's never going to occur. And that's just a simple truth. So it's such, I think, an incredibly important tool to help actually unlock there, and then using opportunities, as it were. I think it's really valuable. I'm going to do some preventative strategies, and I go into some quick fire stuff here, and tissue health. We've got mostly endurance athletes here, so. What would you say are sort of some of the non-negotiable, either daily or weekly habits, practices? I just talked about the Sunday Special there. What are some of the things that you think almost every athlete should prioritize?
I think most of us in this day and age are sitters.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that hip mobility for whatever it is that whatever sport you're doing, is a fundamental to modern society that gets missed. I think also like chest and upper body, neck mobility is another thing, because
Yeah,
you and I keep trying to
sit up and
right?
then sit up and then sliding back down.
I
Yeah.
feel badly when I go to dinner with a patient because they're like, I can't not think about my posture.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
so sorry. So I think that from a maintenance in life perspective, those two things are really critical. Yeah, I mean, we can talk about specifics on stretches, but I think that those are, if I had two things to give general humanity,
Yeah.
those would be it.
I want to go back. I can't help but ask something here, because you said something here and it sparks straight away the big point of neglect that I see of athletes, which I always call it upstairs. So a lot of, cyclists, runners, load bearing, first thing they look at, calf, hamstrings, quads, and they completely ignore upstairs. But the truth is, and I'm saying the truth is to you, and I should ask it as a question, but this is the source of a lot of challenges that occur downstairs with the chain and neck, shoulders, chest, and pec. Can you just dig into that a little bit, because that's counterintuitive for people? It's like, oh, swimming just relaxes me, but everything's downstairs. It's like, well, that's the challenge because of what's going up here. So can you just dig into that for me a little bit?
I think we have a lack of understanding about how the body works on diagonal planes.
Yeah.
And so when I am running and I go to push off, there's a counter rotation of my bottom half and my top half. It's like a little pepper grinder.
Yeah.
And if I'm stuck up here, you know how Tom Cruise runs in the Mission Impossible?
Yeah.
movies, and he's like, chicka, 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 chicka. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't stand it. You really have to be able to have a head to toe dynamic a pattern for the thing that you're doing. When you swim, and again, you go into that catch, if my left hip flexor is tight, my right arm is not going to be able to get there.
Exactly.
If I'm, it is, if I'm on the bike and my upper back is stiff, I go to my transition, doesn't matter how mobile and strong my hips and my lower body are. If my upper body is fixed and collapsed forward and I can't get out of that, I'm going to be stiff as hell getting out of the gate. I can't physiologically get there. Yeah.
And you,
I like
because
the upstairs idea.
Well, but people think about running as a single plane, certainly cycling as a single plane. Let's build off of that a little bit. The importance of multi-plane strength for athletes is critical. Yeah, you want to dig into that a little bit.
Yeah, running is a series of single leg hops.
Yes. By definition, if you're running, both feet are off the ground.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so you're just always like bouncing, you're jump roping on one foot at a time, over and over, hundreds of thousands of times. The thing that stabilizes us and allows us to push ourselves forward is the muscles on the lateral hips. If I don't train side to side lateral motion or rotational motion, my hip strength and stability doesn't allow me to push myself forward. So like if all you do is think about going straight, and triathlon is, generally moving forward at a rate of speed as fast as I can and efficiently as I can. But again, our bodies work on these diagonal movement patterns. And so I need to be training lower body rotation. I need to be training upper body mobility in rotation. I need to be training single leg balance, single leg power. So, rate of force development through speed. And a lot of the time, I feel like in this day and age, people are in the gym. There's this huge, huge movement, especially for women, around you have to be able to squat heavy. You have to be able to lift heavy.
Yeah.
But what ends up being implemented for that is double leg deadlift, double leg squat. Super terrific.
Yeah.
That needs to happen. But you are functioning on one foot.
Yes.
And you need to train single leg activity. You need to train side to side dynamic movement. And even if you're like, oh, I'm kind of retiring from my endurance sports, I'm not doing these big long things. You're gonna move your couch to clean behind it.
Yeah, you're gonna have to walk up stairs, and you don't want to have to use the handrail. Yes, it's the same thing. It's still functional, and it is a little bit of a case of both things, isn't it? Because drawing on the female for their metabolism, for bone density, it's very good to do some, let's call it overweight strength. You need to have that, but not in the absence of the functional stuff. That's why they call it functional strength, to actually go through and doing that stability and ultimately explosive stuff off of single leg and multi-plane is such a critical component. It's an investment. I think that's also another thing, and this is particularly if you shine the light on mature athletes, female athletes. The youth can get away with it a little more. It's still really valuable, though. That's the other thing. is looking at what does it take for me to perform in my endurance sport. Still strength is, back in the day when I started coaching professionals, there were basically zero professional athletes, endurance athletes, that were integrating strength and conditioning. There was a wave against it of, we got a lot of criticism with our pros because we were, quote, one of the first to be a member of the Purple Patch Pro Squad. They had to commit to year-round strength. Their peers, other coaches in the media are just like, waste of time. That Dixon is a quack, blah, blah, blah. I mean, nowadays, there isn't a professional endurance athlete that doesn't integrate strength.
Not a successful one.
Not a successful one, particularly in the long term. So that paradigm shift has absolutely, thankfully, evolved so much. But as a busy, time-starved amateur athlete, and then heightened if you're mature, if you're a female, strength is not a little bit on the side that you bolt onto the program. I would argue for them it's actually central to the program. I always talk about when I'm working with, let's just pick a female athlete that's 45 years of age that wants to go and do an Ironman. I said, you've got your bullseye, strength and conditioning, and everything that's wrapped under that umbrella, everything we talked about, mobility, stability. Then we wrap the endurance around it. That's really hard for someone to wrap their head around when they've got to go a long way for a long time in a single direction. But it really is the catalyst for results. So,
and I think in that population, it's also the catalyst for injury prevention. And it's also the catalyst for like life longevity.
That's
I mean, it is. I remember a couple summers ago, I was in Portugal, in Lisbon, and the cobblestone streets are a bajillion years old. And I saw more women in my age bracket, 40s, 50s, who were in walking boots because they had fallen and like sprained an ankle, broke. And I'm like, oh my God, what are we going to do for these people? They need strength training. And so, again, kind of coming back to this idea that if you don't do lateral work, if you don't do rotational work, you might be able to do your Ironman, but you're still going to fall on the cobblestone street in Lisbon. So anyway, little aside there, but
I want to get your opinion on something, and we're going to strip it down. I'm going to, off the top of my head, say a few modalities or interventions, if you want to call it that, and maybe just give me 30 seconds on each of yes, no, or in context. And so here they are. You don't have to answer all of them, but there are things that I think are important when people think about recovery. They think about improving performance. They think about injury prevention. They think about systemic health, etc. So I just want to get your quick sort of Renee 30-second response. I'm going to do it. Dynamic stretching, so that's obviously more mobility. Static stretching, foam rolling, a lot of people, and everything that goes along with it. Theraguns, all those types of modalities, and then everything else that you can really be sold. So cold plunges and red light therapy and all of that. Let's just spend 5 minutes on this stuff because people want to know. It's really confusing.
it is.
And so should people be using a foam roller? Should they be using compression boots? Should they be doing static stretching? Should they be doing like give people the answers in under 2 minutes to everything right now?
I'm going to take static and dynamic stretching.
Yeah, that's a good starting point.
They have done a bunch of research in this. The research is really squishy. They've recently come out with more research around static stretching isn't bad. But static stretching needs to be utilized in a way that is, again, if we come back to this like prep idea, if I'm going to go on a run and I've been sitting for 30 years at a desk, chances are the anterior structures in my hip don't have the availability to allow me to run efficiently. I need to be a static stretcher. I need to statically hold that for a minute, 2 minutes. I need to be doing it before every single run. But then when I go to run, I need to do some like activation prep work before I get out there. So they're not, they don't live in isolation.
They're not mutually exclusive. Yeah, that's interesting.
If
and is sorry, a question to intervene here, but is it really important for most people, speaking in the middle of the umbrella, to find the sort of central one or two things to do every single time? So in that case, really opening up the hip flexors, that's the static stretch, make it non-negotiable and do some activation rather than thinking 360-degree body. Is there an answer to that? I'm not sure if there is, but
It depends.
yeah.
I think that, most, again, I see the broken people still.
Yeah.
Right? People who are having great success and feel wonderful in all their training, thankfully, I don't know them.
Yeah.
So I know that I'm biased in this way, but I think that most people have a deficit around the activity that they are trying to be successful and ambitious in. And so figuring out what that deficit is and treating that deficit.
Yeah.
And so I think I think one of the things that limits people from the care that they need to give their body to do their thing is that 360-degree philosophy is overwhelming.
Yeah.
And so it becomes inhibitory in your behavior. It's like when I go to Safeway and I'm looking at the cereal aisle and I'm like, oh my God, I have too many choices. I
Yeah.
can't make one. What do I pick in this moment? I can't make that choice effectively, consistently for myself. So I think it depends.
It depends. Okay.
So dynamic stretching, I think, is a lovely way to prep your body. If you're in the gym, you spend 10 minutes, maybe even 15 minutes of this under load mobility work. You're doing A-frame bear walks, you're doing deep squats, you're doing the things that allow your body to activate its neuromuscular pattern system to go into your lift. People again think that, oh my God, I'm not going to spend 15 minutes of my 60-minute lift doing work. And it's like, well, that or not doing work. And I think it's important to reframe that first 15 minutes as work.
Yeah.
Right? You are doing work.
Yeah. That's a good mindset shift. Foam roller. That's one that we always get asked about.
Foam roller historically has been thought of as I'm breaking down scar tissue. And that is not true. You can, so I'm going to dump the Theragun in here too, the little, tiger
The
sticks
and everything that's
a tennis ball, a lacrosse ball, all of these things. You are going to have areas of your body that hold tension. You might be a person who has an injury that does have scar tissue associated with that. If you are the scar tissue person, then getting in and like working in that isolated area in a deep, probably uncomfortable way is valuable. That can be soft tissue work with the massage therapists.
Yeah.
That can be self-mobilization with all of these tools. The foam roll, really a lot of what happens, the surface area is so broad that you're not going to get in and break down that scar tissue. The foam roll really is about inhibiting your nervous system's input to the muscle group. And so you kind of find, if we use the example of like the tight hip situation from the desk sitter, you're going to kind of position yourself on that diagonal line so that the foam roll is in the pocket area, like your jeans pocket, and then just lay down and kind of melt over the roll. And you're going to find that when you allow your muscles to relax and that pressure comes into the muscle, it is going to inhibit the system. When you have your legs straight and you're doing the zip, zip, zip back and forth on my IT bands, and I'm breaking down my IT band scar tissue, the contraction of your muscle is actually holding the roller on the surface, and it's not really getting into the goodies.
It's not really doing it. So you actually want to sink into it.
You want to sink into it.
And how about with on that, somebody feels their calf pull and it's either a cramp or the hamstring or whatever it might be, wherever the symptom shows up. I think it's worth a sort of cautionary word on that, because the first thing that people do is really overstretch it or get their thumb in there and be like, oh, we're trying to will it to go away. Or of course, foam roller, which we're talking about here, Theragun, bam, I need to attack this, but actually end up causing a whole host of trauma that creates the injury. Versus quite often, is your recommendation to go north and south of the injury in many ways, or the place, the symptom? What's the perspective of someone like that? What's a tool that someone or a tip that someone can take away with there?
I think if you have an acute
Yeah.
hamstring pull and acute calf pull, you want to respect the idea that the physiology is going to kick in and do its job, and it needs healing time. And the more you poke the bear, the more that like inflammatory reactive healing thing is going to stay elevated.
Yep.
Right? You're not going to give your physiological system time to go through the cascade it's supposed to go through of the healing process. And so if it's acute, be kind.
Yeah. Do you know my coaching phrase for that?
Oh,
When
I
you have an
don't.
athlete,
Oh.
so it's always the same, by the way. Here's what I want you to do. Leave it the fuck alone.
Yeah.
That normally gets the message across. Don't let it do, and for exactly that reason, let it actually go through the process. And
But I have a similar one, which is don't fuck it up.
yeah,
You know, like leave it alone.
That's our race strategy, by the way. That's
Don't
those.
fuck it up is
Yeah,
your race
that's
strategy.
for our pro athletes. The last words you say. All right, don't fuck it up. So
I do think that there is like, you know, it sticks.
it sticks. You
for
want
people.
the hook where people are like,
Yeah,
okay, let's do it.
I'm not gonna fuck this up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think when there are more chronic issues, yeah, that chronic hamstring tug,
Yeah.
there might be a local issue, sure, that needs to get worked out. You need the Theragun. But you know, like I kind of try to describe this as like the Buddhist middle path for people.
Mm-hmm.
Don't leave it alone.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get after it 100%. Find the middle ground. When you're stretching, when you're doing the foam roll, when you're doing the tennis ball, it's like you want to live in the middle third of discomfort, the middle third of intensity.
Yep.
Too little is not really probably going to get you there. Too much, your body has this reactive protective response.
Yep.
And it holds you out of being able to do the thing that you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
So middle path it.
It's when I think about this, and you know, people here in the center, for example, in the Bay Area, are so lucky because they've got you on the diagnosis and you obviously on the treatment as well. But then they have access to people like the Sports Medicine Institute upstairs,
They're great.
SMI, where that's where you can they can with professional hands get in the right place. So actually leaning into professionals with the right body work. They're orthopedic massage therapists, but they're obviously athletic trainers as well. So that's a real specialist. Finding your crew is really tough. You know, if you're living in Kansas or wherever you might be living, it's really tough.
It is.
But it's so critical.
Yes.
And it's. Do you ever do remote consultations with
Yes.
athletes?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll put the link in the show notes on that.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it is. It's obviously easier when you have a person in person.
Yeah. Of course.
But if you really are kind of stuck somewhere and you're like, I've got this problem that nobody's been able to solve for me, it sometimes can be just, you know, the video, a run, a bike, a swim, and an online consultation. So it can be
at
very
least
useful.
where you can shine the light of emphasis to say this is probably the root cause, and so do this, etc. You can't get hands on, but you can do something powerful.
Yeah.
So last thing, what about the other treatments, all these things like cold plunges and red light? I'm not sure if you even want to go into it. But
You know, I mean, I have not dived into the science personally, so I don't want to overstep. I do think that there is a decent amount of research around the cold plunge, around the sauna, the compression boots, the normothermic guys.
yeah.
Like they physiologically, they do good things. And I think even if it's just a little bit of a placebo effect for you, that's okay.
It's good. Because that is very real.
Everything works on placebo. 50% of what we do is placebo effect in life.
Yep.
The red light therapy, you know, I most recently I've read about they're having more infrared wavelengths, which is going to penetrate deeper. I feel like a lot of these things, you know, like in old school Bengay or what's the modern one, BioFreeze.
Yeah.
Those are placebo. And go for it. If that helps,
if you feel like it helps.
Yeah, you know, your compression sleeves on your calves, if you're a calf sweller, put them on.
Yep.
There is very little that is damaging. There is very little that is negative. It can be a lot of money.
Yep.
And if you're willing to do that as a just in case, like, go for it. Who cares? Have fun.
Well, and
sleep on your red light.
I'll tell you what is damaging. lack of fueling after workouts, really poor hydration, really poor sleep. None of this is expensive, by the way. It's just habits. But
Yes.
that's the bedrock. And I always see all of the modalities that we talked about that go for it, but realize that's never the fix. It's
Yes.
never going to undo, not enough calories, not the right type of calories, not fueling, all the stuff that I just mentioned there. That is the bedrock. That's probably as much what you're trying to get people to do rather than just do year-round strength, et cetera, and under the banner of strength. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it is, if you're tired, your body, people think, oh, I'm tired, I'm not going to perform, but it is, you're not going to function.
Yeah.
It's a lower level than that you're creating a deficit.
Yeah.
The hydration, I really think, is such an interesting, 10% dehydration and your cognitive function declines.
Yeah.
And like 10%, that's not very much. And if you're out on a run in a hot, sweaty day, and even if you're the person who's come in for the sweat test and you have all this knowledge, you still have to execute on it.
Exactly. Yes.
And it's hard, but it is fundamental.
It's the bedrock, and we go to sleep at night, we lose about 1 liter of fluids. So we wake up
right?
by definition dehydrated.
I learned one thing, that an average person loses 8 ounces of sweat through their feet in a work day.
There you go.
Ooh, that's a lot of sweat.
I think I'm about 12 ounces, actually. I get very sweaty feet, sweaty palms as well. So I'm about 16 ounces just to the extremities. I'm a sweaty Englishman with bad teeth.
We all have our strengths.
We all have our strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
Any last, I guess, here's one question for you. Rate on 1 to 10 for endurance athletes of all levels. The importance, from 1 being not very important at all, 10 being highly important. What is the importance of endurance athletes engaging and committing to year-round strength as a part of their program? Under strength being stability, mobility, single leg stuff. How important is it?
10.
10.
I mean, I know I'm buying into your rhetoric.
That is why we have a Purple Patch standalone strength program that you can purchase that will integrate into your coach's training program. Thank you very much, Renee, for that. That's why I wanted to get that little promo in.
Take my 10 over here.
Well, it's because the strength program, there's joking aside, like the strength program, we aim to design this where people can kind of do it anywhere with minimal equipment, but infuse this component to it. And so all of this element that, as you talked about today, was so important. It was so much fun.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to add into the show notes the link. You can head to, Renee has her own page on Purple Patch, and so we'll add that link into the show notes. And also, if you are remote and you can't come to the Bay Area and here in the Purple Patch Performance Center, you heard it here, you can also consult with Renee, where she can help troubleshoot all of your challenges and get the path ahead. But I can't tell you how fun it was, firstly, but also really, really insightful, really interesting. And I know your time is valuable. So thanks so much for all of the preparation and the time today. It was a great time. We'll have you back.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Renee. Take care. Guys, thanks so much for joining, and thank you for listening. I hope that you enjoyed the new format. You can never miss an episode by simply subscribing. Head to the Purple Patch channel of YouTube, and you will find it there, and you could subscribe. Of course, I'd like to ask you, if you will subscribe, also share it with your friends, and it's really helpful if you leave a nice positive review in the comments. Now, any questions that you have, let me know. Feel free to add a comment, and I will try my best to respond and support you on your performance journey. And in fact, as we commence this video podcast experience, if you have any feedback at all, as mentioned earlier in the show, we would love your help in helping us to improve. Simply email us at info@purplepatchfitness.com or leave it in the comments of the show at the Purple Patch page, and we will get you dialed in. We'd love constructive feedback. We are in a growth mindset, as we like to call it. And so feel free to share with your friends. But as I said, let's build this together. Let's make it something special. It's really fun. We're really trying hard to make it a special experience, and we want to welcome you into the Purple Patch community. With that, I hope you have a great week. Stay healthy, have fun, keep smiling, doing whatever you do. Take care.